Morning, everybody. My name's Adam Clay, ruminant manager at Trouw Nutrition. Like Tom said to start off with, we're being filmed, so don't ask any complicated questions. But do ask questions, do interrupt me as I go through, because I'd rather stop going through these boards and answer some questions and have a general chat about it. I'm going to talk about grassland management and managing that grass, but in particular with the high yielding cow. Many of the principles, of course, still go in line with the shorter, smaller Kiwi crossbred spring block calving system. Does anybody work on those types of systems? Yeah, spring block or?
We got both. We got a
spring and an autumn.
Yeah, we got a Kiwi spring calving.
Okay.
And we got all year, two all year round.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Anybody? What are people's opinions on these high yielding Holstein cows grazing? Doable? Not doable? Or?
You've got to have a ration as well.
Yeah.
If you want the milk to
Okay.
It's an autumn calving job, isn't that? You want to push them through the winter, then put them out for cheap milk when they're on the
I mean, it's a business policy, and it's a very good business policy on the autumn block, that's for sure. But it is about, when what you've all said is absolutely right, it's about managing the grass plant, but it's about managing the cow as well, and recognising the demands of the cow, which you're going to see as you go around. One of your stations is talking about physiology and rumen physiology, and similarly we need to know about plant physiology and about the plant itself to be able to manage it better. Now, if we want to manage the grass plant better, we're aiming to do that to manage the herd better. And there is a big fluctuation in the dairy industry on feed costs. Anybody give me any average feed costs on a pence per litre basis? Or ranges? I mean, they'll range hugely, and there could be as much as 10 pence per litre difference. And go back and work that on your own farms. If you're selling 1 million litres, 10 pence per litre is a lot of money. And there's a big difference in those feed costs from herds to herds. Huge variation. And so managing this stuff better, we can actually make a significant difference to the profitability of the business. First of all, we need to know a little bit more about it. So, the grass plant. The grass plant has 3 viable leaves. Okay, now you can get down and have a look yourself. Look at these leaves down here with the fatter, wider leaf, a different variety. That leaf has got more than 3 leaves. So you're thinking, well, what's he talking about? He's talking rubbish. It's not got 3 leaves, it's got 5 leaves on it. A grass plant will only ever have 3 viable leaves, and you can use that as a valid management tool, because when this field has 3 leaves on it, you can say, right, that plant is ready to graze. This has more than 3 leaves on it. This was the first leaf or the last leaf that was grazed. It's been either chewed or cut off at the top, so that's dying away. This was the first leaf that grew. Okay, this was the first leaf that grew up. This first leaf here, it's starting to die off already. See it, and you'll see them on there. It's starting to die off. It's starting to brown off. So eventually, before too long, that's going to die away, and these are going to die away and lie in the base of the sward. One of the first things that you need to do when you go into a field is get down and have a root around into the base of the sward and see what it looks like. And here, you root into the base of the sward, and you can see there's quite a lot of this dead brown stuff. Okay, so every time a new leaf sprouts up, that first leaf dies away, and it dies away into the base of the sward. It rots, it'll turn butyric, it'll prevent a cow from getting the nose down into the base of the sward to get a low residual. Okay, it'll also prevent the sunlight getting to the base of the sward as well. Okay, so then you'll end up with quite an open sward and an open pasture. What other fields have got quite open swards and open pastures that we will have on a farm like this?
Like your ryegrasses and all that lot.
Yeah, your intensively grown your silage fields will, which are generally of the ryegrass variety. Your silage fields will very much, so go into a silage field that's just been cut and look how open the sward is. And then go into a well-grazed field, or even a field that's grazed by sheep and taken down. It'll be very, very dense in the base of the sward. Now that difference can more than double the amount of dry matter that you grow and consume off that field. More than double it. Okay, so we're looking at the difference between 5 or 10 tons of dry matter grown in that field. Well, that is a significant saving and a significant money in the bank, or in the silage pit, or ideally in the cow. Okay, so making sure we utilise as much as we possibly can in the sward is absolutely imperative, and knowing the physiology of the grass plant is very, very important. I said before under residual, what's a residual?
The amount of grass on the ground.
Correct, the amount of grass that's left on the ground after the cows have grazed it. Okay, does anybody know what an optimum residual should be?
1,500 kilos.
Yeah. The Kiwis will tell us that it's 1,500 kilograms of dry matter per hectare. And that's the scale that we use. Kilograms of dry matter per hectare, and work everything on that basis. Okay, because then you can say, well, I've got 1,200 kilograms of dry matter per hectare available. I've got 1.2 hectares in that field, and that field is 1.2 hectares big. So you take your 1,200, times it by 1.2, that's the amount of grass you got available. Okay, but your residual is what's left. And your residual should, in theory, be 1,500 kilograms of dry matter per hectare. How high is 1,500 kilograms of dry matter per hectare?
3 inches, 4 inches.
Yeah, it's very, very low. It's a bit lower than that. It's lower than that. It's about 4 or 5 centimetres.
It's been a hard job to train your cows to get that.
Very hard job. Okay, so now if you've got your spring block calving herd, your Kiwi crossbred cows can go out there. It takes a long time to get a residual of that level. Okay, a long time to get a residual of that level. Your Kiwi cows will be able to do it. They've still got to be trained. They've still got to be trained from a young age, absolutely, from a young age. They've also got to have the correct pasture for it as well. So it's got to be a clean sward. The entry cover has got to be optimal. So remember we said that the 1,500 was the ideal residual. What's the ideal entry cover?
2.5.
I'd go up to 2.8. 2.5 with your Holstein cows will leave quite a low cover, and therefore your intake per bite will be lower. So if you've with your Holstein cows taking up to about 2.8, 2,800 kilograms of dry matter per hectare. Anybody dare to guess how high this field is?
2.6, 2.8.
Or no, this one.
Oh, this one.
It's actually measured this morning at just over 2.7. And it doesn't look very long.
That's because
Okay.
it's even, isn't it?
It's even, and it's a dense sward underneath as well. So there's actually quite a lot of density, and we use the plate meter because the plate meter also measures density as well as height. If you had only 2 blades of grass in here that were this high, the plate meter would squash them down. Okay, but because we've got a dense sward in here, we've got quite a lot of dry matter within this field. Okay, so back to my point. An entry cover will allow you to achieve a good low residual. Okay, the field beyond us, I just measured over 3,300 cover. Okay, it's too long. The field beyond that, where the cows are in, I measured the residual at 2,000 cover. So the residual there was 2,000. It's actually quite nice. They've done a good job because it's clear, it's consistent. Okay, so I'd be okay with that, but there's a lot of grass about, and so it becomes quite difficult to manage. But that entry cover is very important. It's also important for you to budget as well, because if you're entering at 2,800, let's take our residual at 1,600, because a 1,500 residual is very, very difficult to achieve. We'll come back to that. So let's take your residual at 1,600. That means there's 1,200 kilos, okay, in that field. So you get your phone out, you get your calculator away in the field, you say, right, I've got a 1 hectare field, I've got 1,200 kilograms of grass available to my cows. I divide it by the number of cows in that herd. That gives me the kilograms of grass that is available, of dry matter that is available to those cows that day. Okay, so just a very quick budget. That is essential that you do that on a day-by-day basis, because like you said to start off with, you have to balance it with something. Okay, but grass, plant physiology, very, very important. The thing that we have to bear in mind is that the growth rates within a plant or within one rotation varies depending on the leaf rate. So at the first leaf grows very slow. That's the lime green leaf that you see pop up, that first leaf after the field is grazed. That bit on the left hand side, see it's a lime green cover. It'll already start to be sprouting a first leaf, that will, because it'll be motoring now. Second leaf starts to grow at a far higher rate, and that's the big leaf that shoots out and gathers all the sunlight. This leaf, the purpose of this leaf is that it draws up all the goodness, draws up the sugars, okay, draws up also high levels of calcium and high levels of potassium. What type of cow are high potassium and high calcium bad for? Yeah, dry cows. Your high calcium means that the animal is getting used to high calcium levels, which means when she calves down, her own metabolism doesn't know to trigger what's called homeostasis, which is where they absorb their own calcium reserves. So we'll overfeed them calcium. The high potassium in the grass will bind magnesium. And magnesium is very, very important for 2 enzyme reactions which release calcium in the body. Okay, so if we're grazing dry cows, okay, if we've got dry cows out to grass, we must move them in blocks so they don't go back and graze the lime green leaf. Okay. The other aspect to it as well, which is very, very difficult to manage, grassland principles are always a compromise with management, is that you're grazing the cows at the top of the field. When you bring them back in, they're walking back in and they're grazing the reshoots because they're sugary. Well, if you're grazing that first leaf, that first reshoot, then you're taking a lot of the sugars out, a lot of the energy of the plant out, which means you're slowing the regrowth rate. So, okay, so that's why in best practice we'll strip graze or paddock graze, but when we strip graze we'll back fence as well. Okay, difficult to do. Exactly, cow track infrastructure is very important. Track up the side of the field is the best way to do it, because then you can open them up in each way. Or paddock it like this, and maybe have 3 to 4 day paddocks. 3 to 4 day paddocks okay, because you're normally looking at about 5 days for this first leaf emergence. So if you can get them off that field within 4 or 5 days, then you're generally okay, you can get away with it. But farm infrastructure is very, very important to grassland management. So cow tracks, track placement and water trough placement. Okay. Problem with this is that the growth rate up here is flying. So this field is at 2.5, let's say now. Well, does anybody know how much grass is growing today? How fast grass is growing today? Yeah, it'll be roughly, I haven't measured in the past couple of days, but it'll be roughly about 65-70 kilos per day of dry matter per hectare per day. Okay, so for another 4 or 5 days, this field is going to be well and truly ready to go in. I suspect there's another 4 or 5 days worth of grazing before they come in here, but it's getting very tight. So before we know it, we've got too much grass. Okay, and we're grazing entry covers which are too high, therefore we lose a residual. And again, all we have to do, everything we try to do is to try and achieve a residual. Because if we achieve that residual, not only will we get fast and rapid regrowths, we will also get 12 ME grass for the whole year round. Okay, 12 ME grass, that's very, very good quality grass.
Putting a lot of nitrogen on it as well, though.
Pardon?
That must be putting a fair bit of nitrogen.
Not necessarily. No, not necessarily. Growth rate, but you mean to get the quality? No, quality and energy quality won't be related to protein or nitrogen or growth rate. Energy quality will be related to carbohydrates and this energy to fibre ratio. Okay, so as we go on through the growth rate or through the days post-grazing, then if I said that the 3-leaf system or the plant at 3 leaves was the optimum, okay, after that optimum, what do we get? After 3 leaves, what do we get? Still growing. Got loads of silage fields around you. Look at that one.
It's gone too far for grazing.
Yeah, it's gone too far for grazing. But what are we getting in the plant? The plant's growing. We've got off throwing my 3-leaf away. All we had was leaves. What have we got after that? Yeah, we got dead stuff at the bottom, but what else? What's growing in the plant?
Stem.
Stem, exactly. What's in stem? Not a lot, apart from fibre. Okay, so NDF is neutral detergent fibre. This is digestibility. So as the plant grows, and we've got a young plant here, a lot of leaf, we've got very high digestibility, very high energy. Okay, once we've got our 3 leaves fully grown, all that we're getting is stem growth. Okay, so that stem growth is fibre. Okay, it's also increasing the level of lignin. What's lignin? What's lignin? Heard of lignin? ADL, it's seen on the forage reports, which is acid detergent lignin. Lignin is the indigestible fraction of fibre. Okay, it's wood. It's the woody fraction of fibre. It's like straw. Okay, straw's high in lignin. So, if we take our grass plant, it's at 3 leaves, great, it's ready for grazing. Okay, we're in there, but we can't get to it because we've got another 3 fields to graze yet, so I'm just going to have to leave it. So I leave it and I end up turning into that pasture next to it at 3,500 or whatever cover. Okay, so when we start getting above those covers, our energy density is reduced significantly, and our fibre level is increased, and our indigestible fraction is increased as well. Okay, so letting it go past its optimum is a huge negative as far as grass quality is concerned, but it's also a huge negative as far as achieving a residual is concerned. Okay? Ideally, what we're looking to achieve is the grazing wedge, which I'm sure you'll have come across. The grazing wedge essentially means that we want all our different paddocks at all different stages. Okay? What we can end up with in a drought is a shortfall, where we have all our paddocks, all our fields at the same growth stage or the same cover level. Okay, which means we haven't got that stepped level where we're always going into new fields at the same rate. What I'm worried about that we've got at the minute is this. We had a later turnout because we had saturated water, saturated ground. The grass didn't stop growing all through the winter, so we've got a lot of grass about, and therefore we've got a lot of fields at the same cover and all too high. So the key is to turn out early, graze hard when you're early, to step the level of grass covers on your different paddocks, because that way you can manage it more effectively.
And you do compromise with your milk yield then, don't you?
You potentially can do. It's about allocation though. So if you want to, you're absolutely right. If you turn 50 cows into that second paddock and say, right girls, take it down, I'm going to leave you into it until it's 1500 cover, you're going to significantly reduce it. But if
go in.
no, they wouldn't have it. They wouldn't have it. So if you turn cows out, if you allocate a set amount of dry matter by measuring it or saying, I mean, some of you very closely guess this level, so eventually you get an eye to it. You say, right, I'm going to budget 5 kilograms of dry matter and I'm going to turn them out for 3 hours, 4 hours. I'll turn them out to start getting that step into the grass cover, and then I can build on that, but I've got to buffer at the same time.
That's what we do when we
Yeah.
let them have the TMR in the morning, then them out for lunch.
That's it.
And then get them in just
Exactly.
and have TMR before they go in the parlour.
Exactly right. Absolutely.
You find obviously there's going to be so much grass around the dry cows. You've got a problem with dry cows.
Yep.
This year when they're cutting out with too much share.
Too much grass? Yeah, well the biggest problem there is, does anybody know what the energy requirement is for a dry cow? Pardon? Not a great deal. It's about 15% of body weight for a far off dry cow and about 20% of body weight for a close up dry cow, which equates for a far off dry cow to just under 100 megajoules. So dry matter intake for a far off dry cow should be about 14 kilos. So take a 10 ME grass, 14 kilos dry matter intake for a far off dry cow. So take a 10 ME grass, that's 140 megajoules. Okay, straight away. That's only on a 10 ME grass. There's not many 10 ME grasses around at this time of year. Most of them are a lot higher than that. So we're significantly overfeeding energy to our dry cows in those situations. Grass growth rates vary. Okay, it's a pain. It's a real pain. In New Zealand, then they have a consistent lower level of grass growth rates because they irrigate. Okay, it's far easier to manage. We don't. We get some very high peaks that they don't, but they're very difficult for us to manage. We're here now. Okay, so it's really flying. This is last year. This is a 5-year average. Sorry, other way around, sorry. This is the 5-year average, so it was very delayed last year. But now we're really motoring. We're already up about here now at the minute. So the grass growth rate is really motoring. So we need to get covers down. But actually, so a lot of places now are going to need to separate off and put pastures away for cutting. I'm going to cut straight to the last one because we're running a bit short on time. So we talked about, somebody said, grassland management, great, but achieving a low residual is possible, but we've got more dry matter intake that needs to be achieved. So what is the potential dry matter intake of a 650 kilo cow? And there's a decent range, so don't be shy. There's no stupid answers.
23 to 25.
Perfect. Yep, perfect. If you work on 3 to 3.5% of body weight, you're never going to be far wrong. Okay, 20 to 22, 25 kilos, absolutely bob on. What is the potential dry matter intake of this to these girls? Today is a good day, it's a nice day.
18?
Bit less than that. 12, yeah, if they're really going well, then 14. I've had a herd that's recorded 16 kilos, but that wouldn't have been for many days. 10 to 12 would be a more consistent, which means we still need to find at least another 10 kilos dry matter intake for these Holsteins. So achieving a residual is very, very important. Okay, but if you lose a kilo dry matter intake because you think they're getting 12 kilos dry matter intake, and then you think you're bringing them inside for 2 hours, and in those 2 hours they're eating 12 kilos dry matter intake, and then you turn them out again and you think they're going to come out and get some more dry matter intake, the reality is they're not. Okay, so if we lose 1 kilo of dry matter intake on a 12 ME diet, that's 12 megajoules. Work on an average of about 5.2 megajoules per litre of milk, that's over 2 litres of milk gone. What's probably happening is that the high protein grasses are forcing milk out of your cows, in which case you don't lose the milk, you get the milk. But what you lose is body condition score, and if you lose body condition score, you lose fertility. Okay, so grassland management and achieving good residuals is always a trade-off, because we need to achieve good dry matter intake of grass, but we need to achieve total dry matter intake, which means buffering and supplementing at the right times. This is looking at minutes grazing at SAC, a big dairy farm in Scotland, and the periods at which they graze. That cows don't graze through the night time. They're habitual animals. They still think that there are predators in the hedgerows out to get them. I live near Stoke-on-Trent, so they're probably accurate around my way. Which means we get peak intakes in the evening time, post-milking, before it goes dark, and we get a high intake in the morning. Okay? So when we don't want to buffer is after milking in the afternoon, because they're going to go out and they're going to want to eat. They want to eat at that period. So they might eat your buffer, but then they're going to go out and they're going to mess up the pastures, because they're not going to graze because they're full. They're going to eat. They'll eat something. They'll eat whatever you give them, or they'll eat whatever you put in front of them. So if I want to maximise my grass intake, I want to maximise this period here, and then I want to pick the period when they're not going to graze so much. Now, buffering in the morning is good at these times of year, when the daylight hours are still shorter. When daylight hours are at the maximum, I would suggest that your buffering is better off in the middle period of the day, before you're bringing them in for afternoon milking. Because if you want to maximise grass intake, you need to maximise these 2 periods of the day. Yeah. Okay. Now, more park research, which fine is on Kiwi crossbred cows, shows that if they compared that herd for grazing 24 hours of the day, okay, out all the time, bar obviously milking, if they took that period, but then they took the amount of grass intake at that period and then correlated it to the grass intake when they kept them in all the time and only grazed them for 3 hours at these periods, they achieved 97.4% of that grass intake in those 2-3 hour blocks. So the way that we can translate that to these types of cows is that cows are habitual. Okay, they are still in nature, and they will work themselves as a herd in that way, which means we manage it.
Sheds, then?
Sorry?
What about when they're indoors?
Housed all year round?
Yeah, when it's dark at night, so they still go and lie down.
TMR systems are slightly different. TMR systems will have an increased feed rate through the night time. It's mainly because we have got some lighting in there, but when they're in an enclosed environment, then they are feeling more enclosed and safer. Therefore, they will eat some more at night time.
Turns his lights off at night, and he reckons he's okay.
Yeah, yeah. They you need at least 6 hours night of dark time for cows. It's generally 18 and 6, and then the other way round. And then but you need that night time. But sodium lighting in sheds is very effective. Expensive as well.
The shut off time from like 4 o'clock. They don't really milk as much because we're on
Right.
the robot system.
I see. So you can
So
pick
it's
that
around
up there.
4 o'clock,
Is
that's
it?
when they don't bother
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
they'll work.
yeah. They will work as a herd. Okay, I've run out of time. Over lunch, if you want to ask any questions, then please do so. Okay, thank you.